Hi everyone, Brenna Kantner here with Nexus Youth and Family Services for June's Wellness Workshop. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about owning your feelings and how to move through emotional discomfort. We have a lot of upsetting circumstances in the world right now, and we're all trying to navigate that the best we can. So I'm hoping today's presentation can help you out a little bit. So there are a lot of common feelings to have just on a regular basis, let alone during a pandemic and with all of the protests and everything that are happening right now. We just have a lot on our minds and on our plate, and so it's so normal to be experiencing these feelings: anxious, stressed, depressed, lonely, bored, overwhelmed, you name it. There are so many feelings that you can be experiencing, and those normally experienced feelings are really heightened right now, and so your baseline is skewed, so you might not feel as calm as you normally would. Our baselines are all just a little off, and things are not normal right now. They're just not, and that's okay. So you might feel all of these feelings. You might feel overwhelmed just by the situation and your feelings alone, let alone what we have going on. I know for me, my experience as a therapist has been, I had people coming to see me for a reason prior to the current circumstances of the world, and now it is true pile up, and we are all overwhelmed for different reasons, and what is stressful to me might not be stressful to you, and vice versa, and that's okay. So not comparing yourself to others, super important right now. So you might be identifying that you have feelings that seem strange to you. I think there are two mindsets that have been going on, maybe more, but there's the people that have the mindset of that you should be tackling all of the things that you want to tackle when you had less time and were thinking about things you wanted to do, and maybe beating yourself up for not doing those things. And then the other mindset of just doing what feels best for you. I'm kind of in that camp of I'm trying to work through just what feels good for me and for my family. Confusion. I know I've heard pretty consistently and have experienced it myself, not sleeping well. And when you're not sleeping well, your brain's not necessarily firing on all cylinders, and so you might have a lot of confusion just on a day-to-day basis. There might be confused feelings. It might be hard to identify what you're feeling. It's really kind of that sense of just feeling a little off. Anger, snapping at people, it's easy to take things out on others. Something that normally wouldn't bother you does bother you. Everyone's just a little more heightened. Grief, we've lost what we know as our everyday normal, hopefully for a short amount of time, but I don't know, right? We don't know, and everyone keeps talking about this new normal, and this truly is a process of kind of grieving what we had before. And I think guilt and shame, I know in other videos I've talked about the difference of guilt and shame, but at the end of the day, just because someone else might have it worse for you doesn't mean that you can't feel your feelings. When you think of those shoulds and how you should be feeling or what you should be doing, guilt and shame totally increases. If you think about your a computer with all of the tabs open, if you have 20 tabs open versus 2 tabs, your computer runs slower, right? It's having a hard time like figuring out how to zero in on what you're trying to get it to do. And so if you think of your brain like that, with confusion, with anger, with guilt and shame, if you have too many tabs open, it's really hard to like zero in on a task. So again, not just COVID-19 at this juncture, we are talking about the protesting and riots and things that are happening just in our world right now. We are all facing fear and uncertainty. We are all experiencing trauma. I think when I've talked about trauma in relation to what's going on in the world right now, people have kind of said, no, but I put the definition of trauma here. It's a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. It's emotional shock following a stressful event. And this is a stressful event. COVID-19, the protesting, all of it, that's stressful, and it is causing trauma for people. Like I said, pile up. If people were already seeking therapy or were already having some mental health challenges or symptoms prior to this, then it's complex trauma. It's pile up. You are experiencing significant strain on a daily basis. We are all worried about the economy. We have mental health strain. I think a big conversation recently is how we are reintegrating with our friends and family. We all want normal life to resume. And I think we're all trying to navigate how we do this in a way that is safe for you, your family, the community. I think it's really, really, really important to give yourself grace to feel how you feel and give yourself credit for pushing through that. I put the responses to fear here because trauma affects emotional regulation. And so we might be feeling too much or too little. And so I think understanding the responses to fear and trauma is really important, right? It's about engaging or disengaging, fighting, flight, face, or freeze. We have these automatic responses that we really don't have control over. They're ingrained in our bodies and our minds. And I think understanding it will help bring some grace into your life and some understanding. I've talked before about we are not trying to work in a crisis, right? Where we are managing this crazy situation and experiencing feelings of frustration regarding productivity and things like that. It's about giving yourself grace. We're not working from home. You're working home during a crisis, during a pandemic. Things are not normal right now. And so I certainly wouldn't expect you to feel normal. So a lot of people have experienced just significant change with the shelter-in-place orders. If you are one of those people that your day-to-day life really hasn't changed much, that's okay too, right? But at the end of the day, I think all of us have experienced we're not doing things, even if your day-to-day is the same, how we're doing things, what it looks like at the grocery store, what it looks like when we're going out in public, things look different. So all feelings are valid simply because you feel them. End of story. It's okay to feel happy. It's okay to feel sad, hopeful, confused, excited, angry. I've said it a million times probably, but it's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel happy, right? And it's really important not to compare your situation to others and diminish your feelings. Like, well, I shouldn't be feeling happy because so-and-so's day is worse, or so-and-so lost their job, or whatever it is, right? Like, you get to feel your feelings. End of story. I think a huge part of why people's feelings of fear or anxiety are heightened is because of a sense of loss of control. We all have a desire to connect, to control, right? Fear and uncertainty, it's a huge driver for anxiety. And so no matter what your feelings are, we all are probably feeling a loss of control in some aspect. And so it's about finding a balance, right? You don't have to have control of everything to be okay, but there are some things that you can take control of. And I'm a firm believer of you have the power to control yourself. You can allow yourself to feel. You can take time to feel your feelings. Societal pressure tells us to just keep moving forward. But I think it's about moving through versus moving on. it's uncomfortable to sit with feelings sometimes, especially those really uncomfortable feelings. But if you can sit with them and process them versus just pushing them aside, you'll be better for that. Knowing the difference between feelings and emotions. Feelings are really surface level, and I'm going to talk about it more in another slide, specifically regarding anger. But knowing the difference between feelings, surface level, and emotions, which are really deep down, is really important. And you can kind of look at this through the 3 A's. So that's awareness, acceptance, and action. All right, so the 3 A's. Awareness. Being mindful of the emotion. Mindfulness is so important. Awareness is a willingness to admit, own, and feel the feeling. Taking time to center yourself, deep breathing, and really being able to just name it. Naming your feeling is really kind of the next step, right? Getting through to the point of acceptance. The 3 A's are how you move through feelings. And it is really linear. You can't take action without being aware, and you can't take action without having acceptance, right? So these are steps that have to be taken. I found this quote about acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean that life gets better. It just means that my way of living life on life's terms improves. Regardless of the circumstances in the world, even in normal life, we have things that happen to us every day. So we might get a flat tire, or there's a car accident that makes us late for work, or you wake up not feeling well, or you wake up and your kid's not feeling well, right? Life has its own way of kind of throwing curveballs at us on a daily basis. And so accepting, like if you've had a bad day, and just say it, that's acceptance. And then the next step is taking action. So now that I feel it, what do I do with it? So we're going to talk a lot about some ideas of how you can take action around your feelings to move through it and to improve how you're feeling. So like anything we do, getting good at it takes really a lot of practice. And so when we talk about taking action, some steps you can take are, talking it out, talking to somebody that's trusted, just sitting with it and saying, feeling a little off today. Accepting your feelings does not mean dwelling on them, right? It's not about having a pity party. It's about owning it, saying it, and doing something about it, right? So if you're feeling overwhelmed, a lot of anxious, anger, right, there's lots of things you can do. And I am a big proponent for self-care. And for me, that means getting back to the basics. Getting enough sleep, but not too much sleep. Eating nutritious foods, moving your body, whether that's going for a walk, stretching, yoga, really crazy intense workout, whatever it is for you. Could be just playing basketball or kicking a soccer ball around. There's no right way to do that. It's just about moving. Staying connected with the people that you love and care about. Doing something fun, treating yourself. Self-care is just so important to manage those feelings on a day-to-day basis. It helps ground you. When you feel grounded and you're helping yourself and taking care of yourself, you can be there in a much more meaningful way for the people around you. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you have to kind of fill yourself up to take care of the people around you. So more tips on some self-care to help those heavy feelings pass. Relaxation, deep breathing, belly breathing. If you don't know what belly breathing is, look it up. It's really about filling your body with air in the places that you need it most, right? So filling your belly with a big deep breath of air, truly deep breathing. Take a shower or a bath if that's something you enjoy. Make a gratitude list, things that you're grateful for. Process it, write it out, journal, get it out. Taking a nap, moving your body, taking a walk, stretching. I love this little graphic that I found of what am I feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? if it could talk, what would it say? What might it be teaching you? What do you need to do right now? And what's a step you can take to meet your need? I love this graphic so much. And I think it's so important. Where do I feel it in my body? So to be aware of your feelings, that could be a really important step, is knowing where you feel it in your body. If you're angry, right, you might be clenching your jaw, clenching your fist, or you might feel really hot. If you're anxious, you might feel it in your chest or your stomach, right? A lot of times it's cues, right? Sometimes our body amps up for that feeling that's coming, right? Because we get triggered. So we have internal triggers and external triggers. Internal triggers are the things that we tell ourselves. External triggers are the things that somebody else does, or something that happens to us. And the internal triggers are kind of what we feel about that. So when you think about those triggers of maybe you walk into a room and people are talking about you, right? Or you think they're talking about you. That's the internal trigger, right? You walk into a room and everyone stops talking and turns around and looks at you. You might go, oh, they were talking about me. They don't like me, right? And so that's the internal trigger and external trigger. And it might make your tummy hurt. Like, it might make you really nervous, right? And so, but that's a good way when you can figure out where you're feeling it in your body. It's a good way for you to kind of help become aware of the feeling and what to do with it. Planning for the what if fears. I think we're all our own worst enemy. I'm just going to say that. I think we're all our own worst enemies. We're all typically very hard on ourselves, and we can sometimes focus a lot on those what ifs. What if this happens? So I think when you think about your what ifs, evaluating the distance between your worries and your reality, the things that you're what ifing and what is real and what could actually happen. Sometimes making a plan, creating a strategy around the what if your worry and your reality are close together and it is something that could possibly happen, I think creating a strategy around that can alleviate some anxiety around those things that might happen. So it's really about saying, okay, well, what if? So what if that happens? Then what, right? What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? What can you do to take care of yourself? What can you do to take care of your family, right? Creating a plan and a strategy around those what ifs can be really helpful. So I talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago, but really understanding where you're at versus feelings versus emotions. So this anger iceberg is a really awesome depiction of that thought. So the feeling could be anger, right? It's very surface level. It's what you can see when we're angry. There's so many other emotions that come with that, right? So angry is kind of how we present, but a lot, like 100% of the time, when you're angry, it is because you are feeling these other feelings of feeling stressed out, exhausted, disappointed, maybe like something's unfair, right? And so those emotions are more deep-seated, internal things that are going on inside of us, and the feeling is kind of what comes out. It's very surface level. And so if you can recognize your cues, recognize where you're feeling in your body, you can really get to the heart of the emotions. And all of that is about building awareness and acceptance in order for you to take action. And so I also included this feeling wheel. The center of it is those basic words that we feel, and so expanding your emotional vocabulary. So if you're feeling sad. It could be about feeling lonely or vulnerable, depressed, and kind of even further than that, it gives you different words. If you're feeling hurt, it could be about you being embarrassed or disappointed, right? So it's about kind of expanding that vocabulary and that thought process in order for you to kind of manage your feelings, emotions, mental health, and move through your feelings rather than pushing them aside. Lastly, I think it's really, really important to set boundaries for yourself. It kind of goes along the same lines of not comparing yourself to others, but kind of creating just a little emotional safety bubble for yourself, right? You might hear from other people around you of it's in your head, it's not a big deal, just sleep it off, right? Like, I don't want to hear about your feelings, like, man up, suck it up, whatever it is. But your life is perfect, right? What? No, right? And so rather, you have to be able to combat that with your own mind frame, right? And not letting those in. And so if you can create a little bubble of it's okay to say no. There are good days and bad days. Asking for help's okay, right? I think asking for help and saying out loud how you're feeling is such a significant sign of strength and courage that, I mean, when people tell you just it's in your head, no, feel your feelings. It's okay not to be okay. You're allowed to hurt. Asking for help's not a weakness. And I think it's so important to keep this in mind. I love these graphics as well. It's why I'm sharing them with you. It's about breaking the stigma and just saying out loud how you feel. And so I think in light of what we're going through, just with the circumstances in the world, I think being able to just own your feelings and say them out loud and move through them rather than pushing them aside, and moving through them in a healthy way that's healthy for you and healthy for your family. It's just really important and really valuable. And I hope you find this valuable as well. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening and watching. Hopefully we can start seeing each other in person soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, please reach out, let me know. Happy to talk.